Across the silent spread of the Orion Traverse, where stars hung like watchful embers in a frozen cathedral of darkness, alarms rippled through the great fleets of the Galactic Council. Not alarms of invasion, nor alarms of cosmic catastrophe, but something far stranger. Something the oldest civilizations had hoped would never echo again. A tone forged in the earliest ages of interstellar law, a signal reserved only for species that were never supposed to reach the line. And for the first time in recorded history, it carried a name the galaxy had mocked, dismissed, and underestimated for generations: humanity. The message pulsed through hyperspace buoys like a heartbeat reversing the cold logic of the void. It announced, without shame, without fear, that the young species from the blue world had crossed the forbidden threshold. The frontier that only the most ancient powers dared to approach. Humanity had entered the line, elder delegates whispered from the safety of crystalline citadels orbiting red dwarfs, each voice trembling with the same ancient fear. For if history had taught the galaxy anything, it was that whenever a young, reckless species broke through the line, they didn't do so quietly. They did so loudly. They did so violently. They did so at a cost that rippled across entire star clusters. And no species burned through their limits quite like the humans. No species climbed, adapted, and defied the universe with such relentless ferocity, but far beyond the panicked council outposts, humanity wasn't celebrating. On the edge of the line itself, aboard a lone frontier outpost built on a reef of blackened asteroids, the mood was not one of pride but of awe. Because crossing the line wasn't an achievement. It was an encounter. A shape drifted beyond the translucent shield of the observation deck, an object older than entire civilizations, wrapped in layers of drifting cosmic dust like a forgotten sarcophagus. Its surface emitted faint pulses of violet luminescence, patterns that reshaped themselves like equations made of dreams and nightmares. Every sensor, every scanner, every automated security suite had failed the moment the structure appeared. Only the human crew's instincts remained, and instinctively, every single one of them knew the truth. They were not alone here. The galaxy had always feared what lay beyond the line. Not because of the size of the objects found there, but because they were never dead. They were never simple. They were never just relics. They were warnings. From whatever existed before history itself, the structure shifted. Not physically, but perceptually. Human eyes saw corners where sensors reported curves, and curves where automated probes saw angles. It was the kind of paradox that broke lesser minds. Yet the humans stared back unblinking, as though confronting something impossible was merely another Tuesday in humanity's short but turbulent cosmic career. A low hum vibrated through the outpost plating. Lights dimmed. Gravity quivered like a candle flame. For a moment every human present felt something they couldn't name, a vast, cold intelligence brushing against their thoughts. Not malevolent. Not curious. Simply indifferent, as if assessing humanity the way one might glance at a spark floating in a storm. The crew braced themselves. Humanity had stepped into forbidden territory, and now something old, something patient, something built by hands no longer alive, had noticed. Yet even as gravity settled and light stabilized, the humans didn't retreat. They didn't scramble. They didn't send desperate requests for rescue. Instead they tightened their gloves, steadied their breath, and prepared to move closer. Not because they were fearless, but because humans had always been stubborn in the presence of the unknown. Beyond the observation glass, the ancient structure shifted again, this time unmistakably aware. No alarms could capture its significance, no council decree could contain its implications. Something in the void had awakened because of humanity. Or perhaps for humanity. And for the first time since the line was mapped, a young, underestimated species chose not to turn back. The outpost thrusters ignited, pushing the crew toward a destiny the galaxy feared they would one day claim. Humanity had crossed the line, and the universe had just felt the first tremor of what that truly meant. The outpost drifted closer to the impossible structure, engines burning softly against the weight of an unseen force that pressed back with every meter gained. It wasn't gravity. It wasn't magnetism. It was something older, a presence that seemed to evaluate the humans not by mass or energy but by intention. And humanity, stubborn as stars born in storms, radiated one intention above all, to understand. The structure's light flared, no, unfurled, blooming into shapes that refused to obey geometry. Patterns rearranged like living constellations, folding through dimensions humans didn't yet have the words for. The crew felt their vision stretch toward meaning, but instead of breaking, instead of screaming as the other species had always done when exposed to such ancient logic, the humans stabilized. They grounded themselves through memory, through emotion, through the fierce tether of their humanity. That alone made the structure pause. Deep inside the forbidden artifact, something shifted, like the slow opening of a cosmic eyelid. Signals pulsed outward, older than empires, older than recorded thought, racing across the fabric of the void. Hours later, those signals would slam into the listening posts of dozens of alien civilizations, triggering new waves of panic. To them, it meant the ancient construct had activated for the first time in a million years, and the activation was centered on humans. Back at the council hall, entire species argued through layers of holographic chaos. Some demanded immediate sterilization of humanity's frontier zones. Others called for retreat, insisting nothing they possessed, no fleet, no weapon, no prophecy, would matter if the old mechanisms chose a new successor. And in every corner of the hall, the fear was the same. Humans were being recognized by something beyond the council's comprehension. But on the frontier, the humans only felt the next tremor. The structure peeled open like a flower blooming against the dark, revealing an interior that breathed with soft auroras. The lights rippled as though welcoming them. A docking gate materialized, grown, not built, forming from threads of starlight that wove themselves into a pathway. Metal that wasn't metal. Energy that wasn't energy. A technology so far beyond logic that humanity, for once, could only gasp, yet even now, they didn't hesitate. Thrusters hummed. Magnetic clamps released. The outpost shuttle launched with a smooth, steady thrust, gliding through the gate that no species had ever survived entering. The moment they crossed the threshold, reality bent. Not violently, beautifully. The interior was an ocean of shifting architecture. Shapes flowing like tides responding to their presence. The humans felt the structure learning them, mapping them, studying them not as invaders, but as potential. Far below the shuttle, illuminated by drifting particles of glowing dust, a vast chamber opened. Enormous pylons reached upward like the ribs of a titan, humming with power. Between them hung a sphere, perfect, delicate, impossibly dense. Its surface shimmered with symbols that morphed into memories they had not lived yet. The sphere pulsed. The humans felt warmth in their bones. Recognition. A wordless message carried through the marrow of existence. You are late. The shuttle drifted closer. The sphere brightened. Across the galaxy, the Council's war fleets began forming lines, engines roaring, formations locking into place in desperate patterns. Their fear was simple: whatever the structure was awakening, humanity was now part of it. And no species, no empire, no ancient power had ever emerged unchanged from the line. Inside the chamber, the sphere rotated silently, casting halos across the faces of the crew. Humanity was not being warned away. Humanity was being invited in, and the ancient structure waited to see if the humans were worthy of the inheritance that had been denied to every species before them. The sphere's light expanded until it washed over the shuttle, filling every corner with a glow that felt like standing in the memory of a sunrise. The humans braced for pain, for intrusion, for the psychic rupture that had shattered so many alien explorers before them. But the light did not pierce. It enveloped. It listened. Within the glow, images formed, vast landscapes, star nurseries, shattered moons, and civilizations rising from dust only to crumble again. Each vision appeared for a heartbeat, then dissolved into the next, as if the sphere were searching for something it had lost. Or someone. A tremor rippled beneath the chamber. The pylons surrounding the sphere vibrated, their tones forming a harmonic so deep it felt like a second heartbeat syncing with every human pulse. Outpost sensors overloaded, drowning in impossible data. Waves of energy surged around the pylons, forming patterns that resembled languages, then emotions, then equations describing the birth of universes. No rational mind could hold it all, but the humans did what they always did when the cosmos stared at them with fire and unknowable rules. They adapted. The ship's captain steadied her breathing, letting the overwhelming flood of meaning pass through her without trying to grip it. The human mind, as fragile as it was stubborn, found footholds where other species only found disintegration. That strange fusion of logic and instinct kept the crew anchored while the sphere rewrote the air around them. Outside the structure, the void stirred. Council fleets were now converging, their numbers blotting out entire patches of starlight. War banners pulsed across dreadnought hulls as admirals shouted orders with trembling voices. They watched the ancient structure pulse brighter and brighter, and every color change sent a new wave of panic through their ranks. Weapons warmed. Shields overlapped. Thousands of captains whispered the same fear: if humanity is chosen, the galaxy resets. Back inside the chamber, the sphere finally stabilized. Its surface smoothed, shifting from chaotic symbols to a singular pattern, 3 spiraling lines converging into one. The humans didn't recognize the symbols, but the message thundered through their bodies. Connection established, the chamber darkened, and the sphere projected a memory so ancient it trembled. A colossal being of shimmering latticework, neither flesh nor machine, stood where the humans now floated, addressing a council of species long extinct. Its voice was a melody of galaxies colliding, deep and resonant, trial after trial. Attempt after attempt. You seek dominion, not stewardship. Your time is denied. The memory fractured into shards of light as the sphere replayed countless species stepping forward, claiming they were ready to ascend. Each one failed. Some buckled under the burden of truth. Some tried to seize the technology and were vaporized. Some turned on one another. Proving their unworthiness before the test even ended, the sphere dimmed, withdrawing the horrors of the past, revealing the chamber once more, and then it spoke again, not in words, but in the steady uncoiling of its energy as it reshaped the inner sanctum. Platforms formed beneath the humans. Archways rose from the floor like growing vines. Runes carved themselves into existence with sparks of blue fire. A pathway was being built, a test awakening. For them, the captain felt her throat tighten. She sensed no malice, no trap, only expectation. The structure had been waiting for minds that learned through emotion, through persistence, through their ability to stand in front of oblivion and whisper, "Show me more." Far beyond the structure, the council's armadas shifted nervously, seeing the new formations inside via long-range scans. Their panic reached a breaking point. Several fleets armed their planet-killer weapons, the kind banned since the Dawn Accords. Treaties cracked. Alliances splintered. Every admiral understood one terrible truth: if the humans passed the test, nothing in the galaxy could stop what came next. But inside the chamber, the humans took their first steps down the glowing path. The structure felt alive beneath their feet, adjusting to their weight, reacting to their thoughts with pulses of light. Every footfall took them deeper into a realm untouched for epochs. The air grew warmer. The light shifted. The path dissolved into a massive platform overlooking an impossibly deep abyss. Shapes moved far below, vast coiling currents of energy. As if the chamber held a caged starstorm waiting to be unleashed, the captain gazed into the depths and felt the truth settle into her bones. This entire construct was not a relic, it was a gateway, and humanity had just opened it. The sphere floated behind them, humming with anticipation. The first trial was about to begin, and somewhere beyond the abyss, something ancient leaned forward, eager to see what humanity would do next. The air thickened as the humans crossed the threshold into the abyssal chamber. The glow of the platform humming beneath their boots like a heartbeat echoing from a primordial age. The space around them widened until it felt as if they had stepped onto the edge of creation itself. Wisps of luminous vapor drifted from the great chasm below, coiling into shapes that resembled thoughts, memories, fears. The abyss was not empty. It was aware. A low vibration trembled through the structure, and the abyss responded. Rivers of molten light currents shifted far below them, swirling into vast arcs before exploding upward in spirals of radiant energy. The humans shielded their eyes as the storm rose, taking the form of a colossal vortex that towered above the platform. Every pulse of the construct, every flicker of electric luminescence, felt purposeful, as though the chamber itself were breathing. The trial had begun. The structure reshaped itself again, the floor extending into bridges of translucent obsidian-like glass that stretched across the void, twisting in impossible geometry. On each bridge, a massive monolith grew from nothing, etched with runes flickering in 1,000 colors. The humans felt them before they understood them, whispers of meaning flowing directly into their minds. These monoliths recorded the intentions of those who attempted the ascension. Every species before them had failed at the same point. Not because they lacked strength. Not because they lacked knowledge, but because they had lied, to the sphere and to themselves. The humans took a cautious step toward the first monolith. As they approached, the runes ignited in a sequence that spiraled around the stone in liquid fire. A wave of pressure hit them, forcing memories to the surface, memories they had never intended to share. Images flashed before their eyes, the captain's childhood, spent beneath a sky choked with ash from border conflicts, the engineer's first loss to void sickness, the medic's guilt from a triage decision years old but still heavy on his heart. The trial pulled hard on their truths, seeking cracks, searching for fractures. No armor or weapon could defend against this. The abyss demanded honesty. A thunderous pulse surged through the chamber as the monolith tested the captain first. She stumbled, gripping the side of the bridge as a storm of memories, some cherished, some painful, flooded her mind. The abyss probed her sense of purpose, ripping away every layer of duty, rank, and pride until only raw intention remained. Why do humans ascend? The question resonated across the chamber, booming through their skulls like a cosmic roar. The captain tried to speak but found her voice caught somewhere between breath and fear. She steadied herself, focusing on the one truth that had carried humanity across the stars. They never climbed to rule. They climbed to understand. They climbed because curiosity burned hotter than fear. The monolith responded, its runes shifted, cooling from chaotic fire to a calm, deep blue. The pressure lifted. The captain exhaled, the answer accepted. The abyss hummed, satisfied with her honesty. Now it turned to the others. Each human stepped forward, confronted by memories and doubts that made their legs tremble. Their thoughts were stripped raw before a cosmic intelligence older than their species. Yet one by one, they faced their truths without hiding. Shame and strength walked together, intertwined like the double helix that defined them. The monoliths dimmed, forming a bridge deeper into the abyss. Above the chamber, the sphere hovered silently, its radiance observing every reaction, every heartbeat. It measured not power, not intellect, but intention, something the council never understood. That was why they feared humanity. They feared beings who could stand before their own past without flinching. Beings who wore their scars as proof that they kept going. Far outside the ancient construct, council fleets trembled as the abyss's output spiked. Tremors of energy spiraled into space, bending sensor readings, twisting long-range scans into unreadable chaos. Admirals shouted orders while shrouded in flickering holographic static. They struggled to maintain formation, terrified that the humans were awakening something the galaxy had sworn never to touch again. In the flagship, the Supreme Chancellor ordered the deployment of singularity torpedoes, illegal, devastating, capable of tearing space apart at the atomic level. Captains hesitated, their hands shaking. No one wanted to fire the weapons first. No one wanted to be responsible for ending an age, but fear eroded hesitation. The Chancellor gave the order, weapons primed. Inside the abyss, the humans felt the shift. The structure shuddered as if warning them. The paths ahead began to rearrange, arches unfolding like the petals of a cosmic flower, leading them toward the heart of the trial. A vast cathedral-like hall appeared, suspended over the churning starstorm below. Towering pillars made of crystallized concepts, time, gravity, entropy, flickered in and out of form. And at the center of the hall floated a second sphere, smaller, dimmer, damaged. The captain approached slowly. The sphere flickered weakly, its light stuttering like a dying star. Yet when it sensed the humans, the glow steadied, warming in recognition. It remembered them, not individually, but as a species. Fragments of ancient interactions flashed, humans stumbling through early space travel, humans sending crude signals with impossible hope, humans reaching further than they had any right to with tools that barely held together. The sphere had watched their rise from the dark edges of the galaxy, fascinated by creatures who always seemed to run faster toward danger than away from it. The trial was not just a test, it was a reunion. The damaged sphere reached toward the humans with a beam of trembling light, and images filled the hall, visions of what would come if they failed. Stars collapsing. Empires warring. Civilizations burning beneath weapons designed to erase entire bloodlines. A future where the Council ruled through fear, crushing every independent system until the galaxy drowned in silence. But then it showed the alternative. If humanity ascended, the galaxy did not kneel, it united. Not under rule, but under example. The hall dimmed. The sphere waited, the humans stepped forward, hands outstretched, accepting the impossible mantle offered to them. Light erupted around them in a shockwave that shook the abyss and tore open a cascade of cosmic energy. The chamber roared. The abyss surged like a star waking from slumber. Outside, Council sensors overloaded completely, plunging fleets into darkness. And in that silence, a single truth echoed through every corner of the ancient construct. Humanity had been chosen, the trial was over, the ascension had begun, and the galaxy was seconds from discovering what that truly meant. The chamber collapsed into pure radiance as the ancient construct awakened fully for the first time in 100,000 years. Waves of shimmering lattice light rippled outward, reshaping the abyss chamber into a colossal star-forged cradle. What had once been broken bridges and lonely monoliths now fused into spiraling architecture made of living energy, rising into the darkness like the skeleton of a newborn universe. The humans stood at its center, suspended in a cocoon of weightless brilliance. Every breath trembled with power. Every heartbeat echoed like thunder. Their bodies cast shadows that stretched impossibly far, as if the chamber saw not who they were, but who they would become. Far above, the first sphere hovered like an awakened sun, orbiting the humans in slow circles. The damaged sphere joined it, its glow strengthening as it drew nourishment from the light. Together, the spheres formed a twin-star dance. Revolving faster, faster still, until the lines between them blurred into a luminous halo. The construct was preparing something vast. The humans felt it. They felt the chamber drawing in matter, pulling traces of ancient metals, star dust, and quantum particles that no longer existed anywhere else in the galaxy. Threads of shimmering strands coiled upward, weaving into vast structures, arches, conduits, ruined pillars, all designed for a single purpose. The ascension was not symbolic, it was technological, it was structural, it was real. Outside the construct, the galaxy burned with sudden movement. Council commanders screamed across encrypted channels as the energy bloom expanded, stretching across light minutes. The singularity torpedoes, already primed, began to destabilize. The warheads trembled violently, threatening to detonate prematurely. Panic surged through every fleet, but it was too late to call the order back. The Chancellor demanded the weapons be launched before humanity completed whatever ritual they had triggered, fire. The weapons were released, 6 torpedoes streaked toward the construct, each one capable of tearing spacetime open like cloth. Inside, the humans' vision expanded in all directions. They could see the torpedoes screaming toward them, streaks of white-hot annihilation piercing the void. They could see the Council fleets preparing to scatter. They could see star systems flickering on the edges of darkness like candles trembling in a cosmic storm, but they did not feel fear. They felt clarity. The spheres pulsed once, then again. The humans were lifted upward, suspended before the swirling binary halo as it split open, forming a colossal circular gate, a cosmic aperture that revealed a blinding expanse of white gold energy behind it. The humans reached toward it, fingers trembling from the tidal wave of brilliance pouring through. The gate answered their touch. The moment their hands brushed the light, the entire construct detonated in a silent explosion of cosmic color, layers of reality folding outward like petals of a celestial flower. The platforms, bridges, and monoliths dissolved into streams of luminous particles, sucked upward into the gate like fuel feeding a star. The humans rose with it, and the ascension began. Their bodies were not harmed, not broken, not destroyed. Instead, knowledge, pure, ancient, concentrated knowledge, flowed into them like a tidal wave of memory. They saw the first species that built the spheres. They saw the wars that shattered the galactic timeline. They saw the attempts to create a guardian force strong enough to stand between civilizations rather than over them. They saw the purpose of the spheres, not to choose rulers, to choose anchors, anchors of stability, anchors of balance. Anchors of peace, and now, impossibly, humanity had proven themselves worthy of the mantle abandoned eons ago. The humans felt their minds bend, not crack, not shatter, but expand, stretching to accommodate the knowledge of 1,000 dead civilizations. They inhaled and felt gravitational fields respond. They exhaled and felt the construct adjust itself. Their neural patterns aligned with the spheres, forming a triad, 2 ancient intelligences and 1 newborn, blazing bright with human resilience. Then the gate widened further, the energy inside condensed into a beam that shot outward through the chamber, slicing into the vacuum outside just as the singularity torpedoes reached the edge of the structure. Time dilated, the humans watched the torpedoes from outside themselves, perceiving the weapons as if hanging in frozen air. Threads of spacetime wrapped around the torpedoes, disassembling them atom by atom. The torpedoes unraveled into dust, then into particles smaller than quarks, then into pure nothing. The Council fleets watched in horror as their most forbidden weapons simply ceased to exist. The Chancellor fell silent, admirals whispered prayers, every ship in orbit drifted backward, trying to retreat from the impossible force that had awakened before them. Inside the construct, the gate began to contract, merging its 2 spheres into one colossal singularity of light. The humans stood before it, suspended in a gentle storm of luminous particles. The beam from the gate wrapped around them, forming crystalline armor that dissolved into their skin, embedding itself into their nerves. It was not a weapon, it was a key to something greater than power, a key to responsibility, a key to the next stage of humanity's journey. The humans descended slowly as the construct's energy faded into a calm, steady hum. The abyss below stilled. The starstorm quieted. Everything seemed to hold its breath. And when the humans' feet touched the platform again, they were changed, not glowing, not mutated, not divine, just steady, calm, certain, the way a storm is certain. Beyond the walls of the ancient structure, the entire galaxy seemed to pause. Every ship, every station, every outpost listening to the Council's scream of panic stopped broadcasts and held its breath, because something was approaching. The gate behind the humans shimmered again, its final burst of power echoing across the void. And then, slowly, inevitably, it revealed a shape, a silhouette, a vast, triangular ship unlike anything the Council had ever designed. Beautiful, sharp, elegant. It drifted out of the gate like a giant waking from dreamless sleep, the first vessel of the ancient fleet, the one built to answer only a single species, and only when they were ready. The humans turned toward the ship as it lowered its massive boarding ramp. A warm, harmonic hum echoed from the vessel, calling them. Welcoming them. The ascension was complete. Humanity now held a ship that the galaxy had outlawed by myth alone. Outside, the Council fleets broke formation in terror. The humans walked forward, step by slow step, toward the Titan that awaited them, and the galaxy watched the beginning of something it could not comprehend, and would never be able to stop. The universe held its breath as the Terran line advanced, not in haste, not in rage, but with the calm certainty of a species that had survived every impossible prediction. The Council fleet tried to reorganize in the wake of their own panic. But panic had already sunk its claws too deep. The sight of humanity, once dismissed as a primitive footnote of a fringe star, now advancing with purpose forced countless admirals to question every assumption they had ever held. human ships glided forward like monoliths carved from living starlight. Their hulls shimmered with a quiet confidence, radiating an aura that felt older than their actual age. It was the way they moved, the way they held formation, the way they ignored the fear radiating from the opposing fleet. They weren't here to posture. They were here because a line had been crossed. And when humanity stepped into the line, the galaxy learned caution. One by one, the council captains realized something unsettling. Not a single human vessel broadcast threats or demands. Not a single human weapon fired. Humanity didn't need to make noise. Their silence was its own kind of storm. Inside the Terran flagship, the crew stood steady, illuminated by the soft glow of star charts shifting in real time. Every officer looked forward, calmly observing the swarm of ships that outnumbered them more than 100 to 1. Their fear had long since been burned away, replaced by something deeper, resolve forged through centuries of trial, failure, and evolution. There was a time in human history when they were fragile, scattered, and unsure. A time when every frontier threatened to swallow them whole. A time when they were mocked for their chaos, their emotion, their contradictions. But it was precisely those contradictions that made them powerful. It was why they never stopped rising. A distant tremor rippled through the void as the council tested their courage and powered every cannon across their armada. Their ships glowed like a horizon set ablaze, energy fields pulsing with lethal intent. The entire fleet shook under the strain of preparing weapons designed to shatter moons, burn atmospheres, and erase entire civilizations. Yet the Terran ships didn't react. Not a shield flared. Not a thruster twitched. They simply watched, like patient giants evaluating the courage of children holding torches. Across the council crews there was hesitation. Doubt, trembling breaths. Many had heard stories of what happened when humanity was provoked beyond reason. Stories of impossible victories. Stories of disasters survived out of pure will. Stories of humanity smiling at threats that had made empires kneel. And now, those stories felt very real. In the flagship of the Council's vanguard, a veteran commander stared into the forward display as the Terran fleet drifted into range. His hands shook. His throat tightened. His mind buckled under the weight of the choice before him. The humans were close enough that he could see the faint shimmer of their weapons arrays. But those arrays remained dormant. It wasn't weakness, it was mercy. Mercy was terrifying. Because mercy meant they believed they didn't need to lift a finger to win. He thought back on everything he had learned about them. Every warning whispered through the political chambers. Every caution taught to young officers. Every historical recount of the species that survived extinction events not once, not twice, but dozens of times, sometimes by intelligence, sometimes by strategy, and sometimes by raw, ferocious refusal to die. Humans were not ancient. They were not the first. They were not the most technologically advanced, but they were persistent, they were adaptable, they were, by their own admission, disastrously emotional, chaotic, and unpredictable. And perhaps that was their greatest weapon. The Council fleet wavered. A ripple of hesitation passed through their formation like an echo of their own mortality. Then, without ceremony, without aggression, without even raising their weapons, the Terran flagship scanned the Council's armada. Not with invasive force, but with a gentle sweep, as if taking note of wounds rather than targeting weaknesses. It was almost compassionate. That compassion broke them, to be shown kindness by the very species they expected to kneel. Was worse than any threat could have been. At last, the Council's front line shifted in retreat, engines dimming, weapons flickering out one by one across thousands of ships. Some turned away. Some powered down entirely. Some simply drifted, ashamed. In the quiet aftermath, the Terran fleet slowed to a halt, watching. Waiting. Giving the Council a choice instead of imposing one. The message couldn't have been clearer. Humanity had entered the line, and suddenly, the galaxy remembered humility. Not because humanity sought conquest, not because they demanded fear, but because they moved forward with conviction that no empire, no council, no ancient power had ever truly possessed. They carried the weight of every struggle, every sacrifice, every lost dream, and they forged them into something unstoppable. The galaxy had prepared for human weapons. It hadn't prepared for human spirit. For a long time, nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Nothing dared disturb the fragile balance hanging across the stars. Then humanity slowly drifted back, not claiming territory, not delivering ultimatums, but simply making their presence known and leaving the choice in the hands of those who had tried to intimidate them. It was a lesson, a warning, a reminder, and as the Terran fleet disappeared into the swirling tapestry of cosmic dust, every species watching knew one truth carved into the memory of the universe: you do not measure humanity by fleets or by firepower, you measure them by what they rise from, and they rise from everything. The stars dimmed, the void steadied, and the silence of space carried a final echo that felt less like a whisper and more like a prophecy. Humanity has entered the line, and the galaxy will never be the same. End of transmission. For now,